Hello, welcome everybody to Winston's. We're doing overnight cooking with C-Vap 2.0. I am Samantha Brown, the corporate research chef here, and I'm joined virtually by my co-hostess with the mostest, Mrs. Linda Bedell.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, my dear?
Good, thank you.
Good to hear your voice. Good to see your face.
Same.
Can't wait to see you in person.
Like your haircut.
You notice I just did it today. Here, I got to swish. I got to swish. It feels so nice. It's my summer dew. All right, let's jump into it, y'all. So we've got 4 demos today. We're going to kind of our agenda is to go over overnight cooking, what you do with the cabinet for setup. We'll look at some of the products, and we'll talk a little bit about what kind of products that you would want to do for an overnight cook. And then all the products that I've targeted for today's demo, I'll discuss the prep and the program for that as well. So to start off, does anybody have any questions? Um, if you do, feel free to chime in. You know, we'll do our best to answer them right now in chat,
I'll be moderating the chat as well.
and
So if
Linda will
you
be
feel more,
monitoring.
if you want to
Absolutely.
type in some questions, I'll be looking periodically and I'll ask them for you.
Excellent. Thank you. Otherwise, you can reach out to us via email or give us a call. I'm getting a little feedback from somebody. If you wouldn't mind, just mute yourself unless you have a question. I'd really appreciate it. All right. So let's talk about the setup. So I'm going to look at this unit right here, and I'm just going to turn it to the side a little bit, and we'll show you where the water line goes in. So, and we recommend a cold line water, a cold line water line that goes into this fitment right here. Okay. Make sure that it's plugged in and turned on. From there, you go to the control section
Can I
on
just
the front.
interrupt you and tell them why? So the reason why you want to have the autofill hooked up with overnight cooking is because as water evaporates, and even though it's a slow process, if you're cooking overnight, most likely you're not going to have any staff there to hear the alarm go off if you run into low water. With the autofill feature, it will just automatically fill up for you if you're starting to run low.
Yes, thank you. Now, to enable it from the control standpoint, just hit the button there, scroll over to settings, scroll over again to fill system, and there's 2 options here. There's the level sensor, and we'll just hit enter, probe. And if we go back and over one more, water valve, make sure that that's enabled. That's it. Water line plugged in, turned on, the water sensor to probe, and then the water fill enabled. You're good to go. Okay, so that's pretty much how you set it up. Now, let's talk about a little bit the types of products that you want to do in an overnight cook. So when I think about it from a culinary or cooking standpoint, I think about all those items like for barbecue, low and slow, and just not CVAP specific, just in general cooking terms. Barbecue, braising, um, long-term or extended time sous vide. So those are kind of well-established methods, but the items that are kind of similar in sense is value cuts, those that have got a lot of connective tissue, those that do really well in high moisture, low heat method. So those are the ones that are really going to kind of shine in in an overnight cook. Um, so for that, I have um, some pork butts. So there's actually 2 different types of cook methods that you can do in a 7 series, which is a time cook or a probe cook. And I'll show you a method for both. First, we'll look at the pork butt that I did. Now, the program back over here, I cooked for 5.5 hours. Vapor was set at 200, air at 230, and it went into an infinite hold at 130 and 132. Now, why did I choose 200 and 230? I wanted a high vapor, a high vapor temperature because pork butt, it's that shoulder, so it's got a lot of connective tissue, and I want to break it down. And then I wanted a low differential. The differential is, remember, if you remember, the difference between the vapor and the air heat. So that's a 30-degree differential. And that's still very moist. Let's check our cabinet. Well, actually, we can't do that. Sorry. I've got it in a hold. I forgot about that. It's going to give us a high relative humidity. So, but if we, I think if I remember, it's between the 60 and 70% relative humidity when you have your vapor at 200 and your air at 230. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this guy out.
Looks beautiful.
Did gorgeous. Now, could I have done a probe cook? Absolutely. Our probe on the 7 series, we can set that to 200. That's our max. And that's probably what I would have done if I had done a probe cook on this particular pork butt. But again, I did a timed cook, one of those tried and true methods, 5.5 hours. So rule of thumb is if you don't have a probe and you don't, it's about an hour per inch of protein. So this was about 5 to 6 inches thick. So I split the difference and did 5.5 hours. So from a prep method, all I did was Chef Barry Yates Super Secret Seasoning, which if you guys want, I can give you the website for. And I added a little bit of Montreal. I just wanted a little more black pepper punch to it. So it's a gorgeous, gorgeous pork butt here. Let's see, I'm trying to find our money muscle. And I'm just going to kind of shred some of that outside pieces.
He's in now. Oh, he's in? Yep, that one worked.
Yeah. Beautiful shredded pork. Now I also did some beef ribs in the same cabinet, and we'll look at that here in a second. We're going to do beef ribs 2 different ways. There's kind of the traditional shredded method, or like kind of the well done, the Fred Flintstone beef rib. And then there's the thought process of keeping that myoglobin or keeping it red, but also still having a nice soft texture.
Got it.
Someone have a question?
No, I think we just need someone to mute. There we go.
Okay. So I think I'll move on into that beef rib.
And I'm just going to touch on, some of the reasons that you would want to cook overnight. Again, with most of these products that Samantha is talking about, these are very low, slow cooking items. And so because restaurants are generally busy and human labor is at a premium right now, it's great to be able to have the C-Vap in your kitchen doing the work for you in your downtime. So you are able to cook when there's, no staff there, and you can come in the morning and it's done and ready and waiting for you. So you're really using the piece of equipment where you don't need staff. It's the ultimate set it and forget it.
Absolutely.
I'm like Ron Popeil over here.
Okay. Beef ribs, 2 different ways. So the one on my right, your left, was done in the same cabinet with the pork butt. So the same time, 5.5 hours, vapor 200, air 230. On the outside, all I did was some smoked salt, smoked kosher salt, and some garlic.
Can
And
I
you
back
have,
you up for 1 second? We have a question on the pork butt. Did
please,
you use any liquid to cook that pork butt, or is the liquid that's in the pan just the residuals from cooking?
that was rendered fat and some residual liquid from the pork butt. Could you add liquid to that? Absolutely. You don't have to with this program. So
Yeah,
that's
there's
the
so
beauty
much
of it.
moisture. You're really keeping so much moisture
Yes.
in the environment.
So same method, different product, same cabinet. So nice flexibility there. The beautiful beef rib. Nice and tender. It's got a little bit of pull on the outside, but not bad at all. Nice, shreddably tender. Shreddably, is that a word?
Yes, of course it is.
We'll make it one today. And then we have, so from this method, so this was very simple. I took a plate of chuck short ribs, just there was 4 bones per plate. All I did was slice them, season them, put them on a pan, and threw them in with the pork butts. That was it. These, what I did was I cut it off the bone. As one side of that rib is about 1.5 inches of nice meat. And I didn't want to serve a bone-in product. And then I cut those into portions. And I seasoned those with the same seasoning, the smoked garlic, or sorry, the smoked kosher salt and the garlic.
And
So,
so you did those sous vide style, it looks like.
and I did it, sorry, I forgot to say that. I did it sous vide style. So the program for this one is 140 on the vapor, sous vide mode on the air. A sous vide mode, you can go up to 150 in particular, or in specifically on the sous vide mode. You could also do, who wanted to go higher than 150. All you have to do is set your vapor and your air equal to each other, and that creates 100% relative humidity cabinet. And so
That's
the difference
gorgeous.
between sous vide and in like immersion circulator versus C-Vap is using vapor as your medium instead of water. Okay.
And the other thing with ribs, a lot of ribs come prepackaged in, that hard plastic wrap. And you can actually cook your ribs right in the, right from frozen, right in those bags, and then open them up to finish them to serve. So that's another great kind of time and labor saver.
All right. The school of thought here is, okay, the sous vide rib was done at 140 sous vide mode. Connective tissue starts breaking down at about 140. But I think some chefs like to also see that red. They want to see the hemoglobin. They want to see that color, the gorgeous color that the rib can show, but also have the same eating texture as a nice, well done rib, nice, tender texture. So you can keep the collar or you don't have to have the collar. So just 2 different schools of thought there. So, but you can definitely do them in both in C-Vap. All right. Let's see. From here, let's make this. Let me clean up a second. Next, we're going to talk about top round. Uh, Beautiful cut of meat, a lot of connective tissue, very lean. We have a customer that's all that they do in CVap. Top round all day long. And they slice it for sandwiches. The program that what's that, Linda?
I think we have a few of those kinds of customers.
Yeah, right. Not just one.
Yeah.
Not just one. Yeah. I didn't want to brag. All right. The program for our top round, it's the one that we used also in 1.0, overnight cooking 1.0, 130 on your vapor, 180 on your air, and that's for about 4.5 hours. And then it'll go into an automatic hold at 130, 132.
Another question came up about flavor transfer. So if you're cooking different products at the same time, like you mentioned you did with the pork butt and the ribs, let's say you're doing two different types of products at the same time, do you get a flavor transfer from one food to the other? Is there noticeable transfer of flavor?
When I think about that, so I wouldn't want to do anything that is, there might be some, I'm not going to lie there, I'm not saying that I would lie. But
I'll lie here, but not there.
when I think about doing multiple proteins with a seasoning, it's going to have very similar profile. I haven't seen a lot of transfer. There will be some, but I think it's just good policy to keep the profiles similar.
Right.
So the pork butt had a garlic, salt, paprika, brown sugar base, while the beef had a salt garlic seasoning. So
Got it.
Is that a fair answer?
Yes. And I was also asked, how long do you sous vide the deboned ribs? And that's really until it, well, I'll let you go. You take it away.
Well, I looked at it after 18 hours. So everything that we're looking at today went in yesterday by 4 o'clock. So when I came in this morning, I looked at the ribs, and that was about the 18-hour mark, and they were beautiful, perfect tender. So I think at probably around the 15 to 18-hour mark, they were ready to roll. But this is technically, I'm using Spencer Cole, our one of our sales guys out in California. He posted this on our C-Vap operators group a few months ago. So I took his 140 program, and I used it for this as well. And it was a 24-hour program. That's what it's meant to be, set up to be.
And I believe he's done some 48 hours as well. I think I remember seeing that he did a 48-hour cook as well.
I've seen it up to like 72.
Yeah.
72 hours, and that not CVap specific, but definitely sous vide. You can cook infinite. You can actually set the program to infinite cook. I have not tried that, so maybe we'll do that on another segment. How long can we cook in a CVap oven? All right. No more questions. I'm gonna pull this thing out. Okay. So here we have our top round. Just real quick on the yield, let's talk about that real quick. I believe, let me look at my notes here. On the raw side, it was 8 pounds, 8.7 pounds, 8.75 pounds. There we go. And on the cook, it was 7.56 pounds. That's 86% yield, cook yield. How does that compare to somebody else? I would say for us, what's typical for this cut of meat at the program that I use is between 82 to 90. I've seen it as low as 82, as high as 90, 91. But I would say 86 for one roast. That's pretty darn good. Um, from a convection standpoint, you would be struggling, I would say, to get 70 to 75% cook yield on that. How I prepared it, so I just got a whole inside roast that I trimmed down. From that point, I did a little bit of soy and a little bit of Montreal seasoning for color. Do you have to do that? No. Some of our sandwich guys that we talked about earlier, they don't put anything on it. They just let the meat speak for itself. All right. So 130 was our vapor temperature. 130 gives us, on the vapor temperature, knowing that food is mostly water. And when we set our vapor temperature at 130, that's coincides with kind of what we want our internal temperature of our food to be. It's our food temperature. So I can't tell. What you see is a consistent red color from end to end, top to bottom. Um, again, going back to that vapor temperature 130, the air temperature 180, that's a really slow and low process. You're not going to get a lot of muscle tensing. That muscle tensing pushes a lot of liquids to the center of your protein, and it causes a bullseye effect. That bullseye effect decreases the amount of medium rare portion, edible portion. It's still edible, but you know what I'm trying to say. It decreases the color and pushes it to the center. You don't see that in C-Vap because of the low and slow and gentle cooking method that it is. I'm going to slice some of this. Actually, let me cut it this way. So I kind of watermeloned it, and then if we cut it in half like so.
Looks so juicy. And there's really just no bullseye at all. And that is another, beautiful part of doing that low slow overnight, is that yield and that juiciness, and it stays moister moister longer. So you can use it. We were side by side with somebody cooking and holding in a competitor, and they were able to use the protein cooked in the C-Vap for longer than they were able to use the competitors, because with opening and closing the door, theirs would dry out and ours wouldn't.
Okay.
Right. So this is true for ribeye. It's true for pretty much any cut of red meat. And of course, you don't have to use 130, 180. If you want it more rare, you can go lower. If you want it more well done, you can adjust that vapor temperature and differential and to suit your end users and your customers. So there's a lot of versatility. All right. Any questions over top round cooking?
Just that you're making people hungry, not really a question.
Sorry. I'm sorry. That's why you have to come here. You have to come here. Okay. All right. So our final live demonstration, we have a whole corned beef
Hold on, there is
brisket.
a question about being able to do a probe cook overnight. And again, the probe is with our 7 series, but do you want to talk to that for a minute?
That's a great segue. I actually did a probe cook on our corned beef brisket. Now I used the same program that I did for the pork butt and the beef ribs. So the same program, 200 on the vapor, 230 on the air, but instead of a timed cook, I did a probe cook. and I wanted it to be really tender and sliceable. So I did 200. Again, that's our max temperature that you can go using a probe. And let's pull it out. So of course you can do a probe cook overnight on a 7 series unit.
Right. So that means it's instead of, waiting for a certain amount of time to pass, when that internal temperature reaches whatever you set the probe to, that will signal the C-Vap to go into that infinite hold. And I always ask, when people are asking me what unit they should buy, I ask how important probe cooking is to them, because this, as of now, the 7 series is the only series that you can use an internal probe with.
All right. So just like Linda said, it's once it hit 200, it went into the automatic hold, which it was set at 130, 132.
And do you want to say why you use that 2-degree differential?
Absolutely. So when you have just a slight differential like 130, 132, your air is elevated over the vapor just slightly, a couple of degrees. That's enough evaporation to kind of get rid of any surface moisture on the outside. It's
Perfect.
kind of standard for us when we do any sort of large roast, that obviously we don't want to have a lot of moisture. Not that there is a lot of moisture, but there can be when we get some staging stuff. Okay. So our beautiful corned beef brisket. Now we need some rye bread.
Rye soda bread.
Or even better. I was thinking Reuben. I've got Reuben on the brain. Oh, Irish soda bread. How's that coming through? Can you guys see that? I'm going to pick up a piece and pull it. So
Oh, that is gorgeous.
I would say that's textbook texture for brisket. Don't judge me.
Just jealous, no judgment.
That's a really good corned beef. Okay.
So a lot of supermarkets use C-Vap in their deli department for this type, for this reason, for their top round, for roast beef, corned beef. They're using them all day and night long to keep ahead.
So you think about overnight cooking, you're making the unit work for you while you're not there. So it's a labor reduction. We have a lot of flexibility in the programs itself and what it can do for certain proteins and items that you're wanting to put on your menu. Maintaining food quality, like I said, I put this stuff on at 4 o'clock. The cook time was between 4.5, 5.5 hours, and then it went into a hold for the rest of the time. So, and it maintains food quality for an extended period of time. Consistency.
And precision. Precision is a big factor in that as well.
Absolutely. Precision, consistency, doing the same thing over and over again, making sure that your setup is the same, not forgetting to hit start. Linda, you and I both know that one. Okay, that's the number one thing. If I could go back and redo, I wish I hit start. So that's a good thing to point out. So when you turn the unit on and you hit one of the 8 programs that you have, it goes into a preheat mode, and then depends on the program. It takes about 20 minutes to an hour, and then what will happen is that right around here, there'll be a check mark that says enter. That's your start, and you're ready to go. Once you put your product in, hit the start, and it starts your program. So that coupled with the having a water line turned on, enabled, the program that you want, the product that you want to do, it's a kind of a extra, the proverbial extra hand, if you will. So, any questions? Any other questions?
I was just asked about the temperature settings for the corned beef, but that was up on the screen, so I know it's the 200, 230.
Yeah,
For the
200,
corned beef.
230, and it was a probe cook to 200.
Perfect.
Now, if I didn't have a 7 series and I wanted to do basically the same thing, if I was in a 5 or a 3 series, I would go back to my trusty 1 inch per hour. So this was probably a 2 or 3 inch tall product. So I'll probably do 3.5 hours just to be safe, and that's what I would do. If I really wanted to know what the time was and I have a 7 series and I did a probe cook, I could download my HACCP record and just backtrack and see how long it took me. So that's a nice feature.
And HACCP download is available on the 5 and 7 series, correct?
Yes. Yes. In addition to that, so if you guys were here for our very first live event, Overnight Cooking 1.0, I used the delay start feature. So what I did is I left work to go pick up my son, and I came back to the factory later on that evening, and I had the units up and running by 8 o'clock, 8:30, whenever it was that I came in here. So I delayed my program starting by like 4 hours and allowed me to go home and be with my family and, you know, have a nice little flexibility moment in the evening. So
And you can actually use the delayed start up to 99 hours.
that is
So
correct.
if you are leaving on a Friday and you're coming in on a Monday and you want it to be hot and ready to load, you can delay that time for up to 99 hours.
Yep. Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for now? If not, you can always reach us via phone or email on the
If you
website.
guys are on Facebook, join us on the C-Vap operators page. We'd love to hear from you all and see what you're doing. Let's see.
There's the little barcode that you can scan to get our information.
Excellent. If you have any ideas for future live segments, let us
And
know.
there is a question about mentioning cooking sous vide from frozen, and is there any difference in programming? The only difference would probably be the time. But with sous vide, you're usually going really long anyway, or at least holding for a while. So I would add, what we say, an extra hour, 2 hours.
I would say that's fair. Absolutely. I have not done it personally, but that's where I would start if I had, you know, a frozen rib or whatever it was.
I was going to say it depends on the thickness of the product.
Yes.
You know, ribs, if you're doing baby back ribs, or, you know, those ribs are relatively thin, so it's going to take less time to defrost than if you were doing a, you know, frozen brontosaurus, for example. But yeah, you know, and there is some trial and error, but I would add about an hour or so.
That's fair. Yeah. All right. Well, thank
And
you
also,
all.
I was just given a note that you can Google more traditional sous vide for guidelines and add an extra 25% to the time.
Hey, Linda.
Yeah.
Real quick, I got a helicopter landing behind me. Sorry. Are you saying I can take a raw piece of beef if I want to delay cook? I'm going to leave a raw piece of beef unrefrigerated for 2 or 3 days.
That is not what I'm saying. That is absolutely not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you can delay the time, you can delay the start time of the C-Vap, so that instead of coming in at, you know, 7 in the morning and having to wait for your oven to preheat, you could say you're coming in at 7 if you delay the start time till 6 a.m., by 7 a.m., that unit will be preheated and ready to go.
Yeah, do not put product
Do
in
not
on
load
its like.
product in for
Sorry, thank
99
you.
hours.
Should've-
But that was a
should've
great
clarified
question.
that. Thank you.
I didn't think so. I'm going, that's not going to work.
No, we're simply talking about just the preheat time when you want to start the oven preheating. So, because I did have a question. Somebody wanted to use it as a proofer, but they wanted it to kind of be a retarder proofer. And I explained that we're not going to be able to hold it A, cold, and B, above that safe zone. So yeah, that's just for starting the oven to preheat. Any other questions?
Linda, it's a pleasure.
As
Thank
always,
you so
pleasure
much.
with you. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for joining us. Stay tuned for the next one. I don't know when it'll
Thanks,
be.
guys.
I don't know what it's going to be about, but it'll be awesome, I'm sure.
And we're up for suggestions. If there are things that you want to see, drop us a line.
Please.
We can make it happen.
Next time, bring the mustard for the corned beef.
Was that Corey? What did he say?
No, that was Todd. He wants mustard.
Mustard? Oh, right. Dang.
See the potatoes and carrots in there too.
I want a nice French roll with some au jus. I want some sauerkraut and rye
I
bread.
just want some Irish soda bread.
Oh, right. All right, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Take care. See you soon.
Bye.